Hi, everybody. How's day 2 going? Good. I love it. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Nefra McDonald. I am the Director of Strategic Engagement at Clio. And it's a mouthful of a title, but what it involves is partnerships, public speaking, the Clio Cloud Conference, our virtual events, our live events. I've got a large portfolio underneath me, but that means I also have a team of amazing individuals that I get to work with every day. I hope you've gotten to interact with a lot of Cleons here because they are truly some of the best humans, and I have no doubt that you are too. I am a process junkie. I love talking about how to unlock the full potential within you so that you can unlock the full potential of the work that you do every day. And you can catch me anywhere from an EDM festival to a fete in the islands. I'm training beautiful beaches, mountains. I love hiking, lifting weights, playing with sound bowls. I'm a multifaceted human. And I can also just lay flat on the couch and rot with Netflix. So I am a diverse human, and I celebrate it all, and I hope you celebrate the diverse parts of yourself too. So what are we talking about today? What is this purposeful self-reflection? So I believe that the keys to a purposeful life are being centered in your values and your why, taking care of your inner world, mindset shifts to create clarity in your outer world, small steps toward time-bound goals, and evaluating, recalibrating, and most importantly, celebrating. So we're going to dive into these together in the next 30 minutes. So let's start with why. Henry Ward Beecher was an American Congregationalist clergyman. He was a social reformer and a speaker known for his contributions to the abolition of slavery. And he emphasized God's love in his sermons and influenced a lot of mainstream Christianity throughout the 21st century. So whether you believe in God or the universe, some higher power, or just yourself, being grounded in your values and who you are has a profound impact on your thoughts, your feelings about yourself and others, and your actions and how you navigate the world. And I love this quote by him. Every artist dips his brush into his own soul and paints his own nature into his pictures. So hold on to that for a second. So what makes you come alive? If you've got a piece of paper, your laptop, a phone, jot down some notes. What makes you come alive? What are you doing that makes you the most joyful? Where are you the most joyful? So for me, it's doing this. It's public speaking. It's being in a community with like-minded people. It's having the chance to share my thoughts, my feelings, and making even the smallest difference in somebody's life because of my vulnerability and putting myself out there. Next thing I want you to think about are your strengths. What are your strengths? Where do you think you add the greatest value? What are the things that people thank you for? That is often the key to discovering your unique genius. And sometimes this one is a really, really hard one for us because most of you are in a profession where you feel like, you're adding value to the world and to your clients based on your expertise and your learned experience. You're so in the weeds of doing that sometimes you forget what you're really good at. And the last thing I want you to think about is how will you measure your life? Life keeps lifing. It's flying by. And at the end of it all, I want to make sure that you're intentional about how you're spending this time. What's your legacy? For me, it's really simple. It's leaving a positive mark on the people I meet and the places that I go. So think about what yours is. So in order to get here, we've got to take care of our inner world. You cannot show up for anyone unless you are showing up for yourself. So I love this quote by Julia Cameron. She is an author of one of my favorite books, The Artist's Way, and I got the chance to take an online workshop from her this year. She's much older now, but it was such an honor and a privilege to learn the principles of The Artist's Way from her. And that book actually is full of tons of practices to connect with yourself, to unlock your innate creativity. So if you're ever in a creative rut, I highly, highly recommend it to get yourself out of that rut, to shift your outlook on the day-to-day, to see opportunity and some possibility again. And I love this quote by her: as you explore your inner world, your outer world will come more sharply into focus. As you face your imagined barriers, you will encounter real ones as well. So let's take a second to reflect on our inner world. So if you feel comfortable, I invite you to close your eyes and imagine a row of 5 silver buckets. Each one of those buckets has a piece of beige tape stuck on its front. And on that piece of tape is a word written in black Sharpie. Bucket 1 says health. Bucket 2 says relationships. Bucket 3 says professional. Bucket 4 says being. Bucket 5 says personal. Now, picture your eyes scanning the buckets. You look at bucket 1 and notice there's about an inch of water inside. And then you shift your attention to bucket 2. And you notice that this bucket is filled to the very edge, so close to the edge that a cup of water would make it spill out. And then you look over to buckets 3 and 4. You realize they're empty. And finally, you walk over to bucket 5, and a few drops of water are inside. Okay, now open your eyes. And this is a mental exercise that I've done with pen and paper to rate myself on how filled each of these major areas in my life are. I write down the name of the bucket, I rate myself from 1 to 10, and I ask myself 2 questions. Why did I give myself this rating? What would make it a 10? And so the answers to these give me things that I need to work on and high-level just actions to get there. So for example, if you do this exercise and you give yourself like a 6 for health, you might realize that you're working out every day, but adjusting your diet would give you a 10. Or perhaps you gave yourself a 2 for personal because you haven't worked on that hobby for a while. Or you made yourself a bucket list to write a screenplay and you haven't started. Or maybe you want to travel more, so buying a ticket to Greece might be the thing that you want to do, right? So note that we might never be a 10 in all 5 of these areas, and that is totally okay. But it's a way for you to see the parts of your life that are maybe struggling and you can give some attention to. So let's go through each one of these, and I want you to, as we're going through these, rate yourself from 1 to 10 in these areas. Yes, I'm making you work, okay? So this is what each of these 5 buckets mean. The first one is health. So rate yourself on health. I think that this has anything to do with your mental and physical condition. It includes things like your diet, your workout routine, your meditation habits. So rate yourself from 1 to 10. And then first question, why did you give yourself this rating? If you're a 10, great. But what would make it a 10? So an example, setting a goal to walk for 30 minutes a day would fill this bucket. What would fill the bucket? The second one is relationships. So this is your social life, your love life, your familial life. It includes things like attending family events, social gatherings, whether that's in person or virtual, outings with your significant other. So rate yourself from 1 to 10 here. Why did you give yourself this rating? And what would make it a 10? So an example of a goal you could set here. So if your social bucket's a little empty and you notice, you know what, I don't really hang out with my friends, or I haven't called one of my friends in a long time. You can just set a goal or set a recurring calendar event to talk to a friend or a family member once a week. That could be something that could keep you grounded. The next one is professional. This is what you do for money. So things like your career, your job, freelance work. So 1 to 10 here. Why did you give yourself this rating? And what would make it a 10? So a goal you might be able to set here is I need to earn a promotion at my job, or I need to set a sales goal for the number of new clients I'm bringing in and work toward hitting that. That could be a good actionable piece here that might make this more of a 10. All right, let's move on to personal. So personal is the stuff that is important to you, not for monetization purposes. So this is stuff like your creative projects, hobbies, items on your bucket list. So for me, I wanted to do a lot more personal travel instead of all of the work travel that I do. So a couple of years ago, I set the goal of making sure I took one really great trip a year, and I'm doing a little better than that. So I saw 12 countries last year, and it really, really filled this bucket. The last one is being. So this is the way of living that aligns with your ethics, your values, and your moral code. So 1 to 10 here. Why'd you give yourself this rating? And what would make it a 10? So this exercise will give you that overview of all of the major areas of your life and how well you're managing them. So whether you decide that traveling with your family more, or attending church, or whatever that action is, if that is the next step that you take, that's wonderful, because the key here is to discover what matters to you and do something about making that part of your life better. So when these buckets in your life go empty for a long time, you know it. You feel it in your body. That's when you feel like something's off. For example, your relationship might be great, but your health might be suffering. You might be crushing it at work, but you have a feeling that you're not making time for your hobbies. Like you feel these tugs with each part of your life. And so if you're close to someone, I want you to turn to that person and share the bucket that you're going to work on. I want you to create a little accountability here. So what is the bucket that you are going to work on next? So take a minute here, let them know, have an accountability buddy. Okay, so now that we've talked about your inner world, we are going to talk about your outer world. Kelly Martin is the author of When Everyone Shines But You, Saying Goodbye to I'm Not Good Enough. How many of you have suffered from imposter syndrome at some point? Okay, one honest person here. Okay. So we need to think about our outer world, because life is happening all around us all the time. And as grounded as we can get, shit hits the fan, right? So let's talk about how you respond to things when shit hits the fan. So we introduced this framework in the Legal Trends report many moons ago. And I love this because it helps to frame the challenges of the outer world and how you respond to it. So VUCA is an acronym for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And that definition first came from the US military to describe the challenges it faced after the Cold War. And so today it's often used in business and investment contexts to describe complex organizations, problems, or the overall state of the world. So at Clio, we've adopted this model to reflect the VUCA world that law firms operate in, and have identified a VUCA prime mindset that lawyers can adopt to overcome the challenges that lie ahead. So as we go through these, we'll talk about how they might show up in your experience and some of the behaviors associated with each, so you know what's coming up. And then I encourage you to, take notes here and reflect on how these behaviors show up in your world and how you're observing yourself while in VUCA, and then how to shift that, because you're going to get tools to shift that to a VUCA prime mindset. So like I mentioned, we introduced this in the Legal Trends report, and it's really, really useful for law firms looking to scale amid difficulty. So volatility is the first one we're going to cover. So the experience might be feeling like client demands, feeling like they're changing so rapidly that you can't keep up. It might be, oh my God, everyone's using AI and I just don't even know what this thing is. And so your everyday feels like it's constantly disrupted. You don't know where to focus your efforts. And so some of the behaviors you might have here is risk aversion and looking to return to a normal way that might work. So think about how you've shown up in these moments. And then we've got vision. So you embrace the unknown in vision. You take the time to get clear on why you went into law, what you want to achieve. You seek out resources to understand the challenges and the opportunities that lie ahead. You look at the current situation at a high level, you articulate your future goals to others. So the behaviors you're doing in vision, self-reflecting, and brainstorming. Uncertainty is the next one we're going to cover. So what might be happening here is things like volatile market situations leading to a lack of predictability in how your law firm should respond. So you feel like you don't have the facts, you need to understand what's happening, you're causing this stress and this lack of clarity. And it becomes difficult to commit to a plan to carve out a path forward. So what might be happening here is analysis paralysis. How have you shown up in some of these situations? The way forward here is understanding. So you're able to identify the key factors in your decision-making process. You actively seek out what you need to create a better path forward. You're accepting that that old way of doing things might not serve you anymore, and you're prepared to create a better normal. So a behavior you might engage in here is engaging in dialogue with others, like in this community, reflecting on your learnings, implementing something new. Complexity. So there are multiple factors at play in complexity, right? There's all these things hitting you at once, internal, external, and it's impacting your ability to succeed. So this can create chaos, confusion. It can lead to defensive behavior. So the ways that you might be showing up at this time is like you're defensive. You're doing like very quick to action decision making, just not really from a place of clarity. It's out of character. It's destructive. You're seeking scapegoats. So think about how you've shown up in these situations when things are complex. So VUCA prime to this is clarity. This is your moment to slow down. When things are really complicated, you're trying to sort things out, slow down so you can focus. You're maybe doing something like communicating your firm's purpose and goals clearly so that you're able to navigate forward in a way that is grounded in why you're doing things, right? Going back to that why. You're asking for feedback from all the people that might be involved in the next step, in the next decision, and who might be impacted by that decision. You're gonna get to a place where you're identifying some of the small changes that you can make that can have a really big impact on your goals. You're creating a tactical plan to ensure you're focusing on key priorities and you're accounting for potential risks. So behaviors here would be things like documenting plans, you're exploring operational changes, and you are taking action. But intentional action, not quick to decision action. Okay. The last one is ambiguity. So this is a place where you're just unsure of what's happening around you. You're maybe questioning how your firm can make an impact or who should be responsible for what. And the outcomes of your choices feel unclear, and that can lead to very poor communication. Can lead to isolating behavior. So some of the other behaviors here are self-doubt, hesitancy, lack of collaboration. So going back to that isolation, right? So think about how you've shown up in these situations. And then go to the VUCA prime version, which is agility. So when you're in a place of ambiguity, the way to get to agility is becoming comfortable with the uncontrollable. You're open to adapting regularly, that growth mindset instead of that fixed mindset. You have open dialogues with firm members. You're talking to your clients about what's working and what's not. you're flexible, you're ready to change your plans if signs of a VUCA world arise. So you remember to come back to your ultimate purpose and your goals when adapting. So behaviors here would be embracing an open-minded growth mentality. You're leading by example here. So we're going to take small steps toward time-bound goals because I've given you the 5 buckets and I've given you VUCA to VUCA prime. And so how do you adopt this today? And that is by taking small steps toward time-bound goals. So you just created a little accountability partner on the bucket that you're going to work on. And so I want you to circle that on your paper, or underline it or bold it if you're working in your computer. Which items in the 5 buckets are you going to tackle? And how can you incorporate them into your daily life and into your habits? So we're going to be hearing from James Clear later today on atomic habits. And it's a really great framework for adding new habits into your life by stacking them onto something you already do every day. So if it's taking that walk for 30 minutes, you stack it onto something that you do every day. So I'm going to brush my teeth in the morning because we want, clean teeth and good breath. And then after that, I'm going to lace up my running shoes and I'm going to step outside for a walk. That's how you do it. Okay. Now we talk about our outer world commitments. So that VUCA exercise that we just did is going to help you to identify areas and external circumstances that can help you, whether, you're dealing with a personal storm or a professional storm. Write down a path. If you are experiencing any one of those things on the left and those behaviors that I talked about, how can you get to that VUCA prime state? So circle maybe an area where you've been showing up in a VUCA way and an area that you want to focus in terms of getting to VUCA prime. So whether you're scaling your law firm or doing something new, you're constantly demanding things of yourself and your team. You're doing things you've never done before, right? And being a beginner is tough, but recreating that law firm 2.0 version, for example, or starting a new role, those can be really challenging things. And it can feel like it's demanding a new version of you that you aren't yet. So remember this rule from property law, those of you that want to throw back to law school and feel that horror. You cannot give what you don't have. So you should always be looking at taking care of yourself as a means to get to the next level of your career. So always be evaluating, recalibrating, and celebrating, because this scaling that we're all trying to do, it requires constant iteration. You might be agile enough to respond to market forces and your life from a place that is centered in your values, your why you started your firm maybe isn't why you're still practicing today. Look at how much you've learned, how much your circumstances have changed. You might have moved, you might have had a baby, you might have lost someone you loved. You might be starting that law firm 2.0. And so you have to acknowledge that you've experienced so much. And so each day is a new challenge and a lesson in how you integrate your work and your life. So I want to recap where we've been. So the keys to a purposeful self-reflection, starting with your values and your why, taking care of your inner world, mindset shifts to create clarity in your outer world, that VUCA prime, small steps toward time-bound goals, and then evaluate, recalibrate, and celebrate. So we are in Austin, and love some country music, and our girl Dolly says this: don't get so busy making a living that you forget to make a life. Thank you so much for joining me for the last 30 minutes. I hope you got something out of it. I hope this was a nice pause, and I hope that you take action when you leave here. Thanks, everyone.